Brawl Stars has a lot of brawlers and it also has a lot of abilities, but there are so many abilities in this game that either don't make sense to the brawler, are outdated, or are just simply horrible abilities. So today I'm gonna go through as many abilities as possible that I can think of that need a rework of some type or just desperately need some kind of buff to them. I'm gonna do my best to make every rework make sense and actually like fit the brawler that it's being put on. And for brawlers that have abilities that just don't fit them whatsoever, they're gonna get completely changed here. Keep in mind, I'm not a competitive player in this game, so if anything seems a little overpowered, it could probably get balanced later. Not to say that any of these abilities would actually come to the game, but if any of them did, they could get buffed or nerfed depending on what they need. Before we get into the first one, if you enjoyed this video, then subscribe. We're trying to hit 1 million. Now, the first ability I want to change is Shelly's fast forward gadget. There are so many dashes in this game, especially like Max's, that make her invincible, while Shelly's does the same dash, but doesn't add anything special. But Shelly really likes movement speed, so what I would do is just add a movement speed boost that happens after you finish dashing. It can literally be like 1 to 3 seconds long, just anything more than only having the dash, because clay pigeons with Shelly is a way better gadget for Shelly that gets way more value. Next is Bull Stomper, and I'm reworking this one because it's too good and it makes too much sense for his kit. What I would do is just make this in his base kit, so while you're supering, you can press the super button again to stomp, but you don't slow people with the default ability. Instead, I would just turn this into Stomper, but without the super aspect to it. So you can stop yourself with your super normally, and then you can choose to use the Stomper after. So let's say you had T-Bone Injector on, then you could still stop your super, but you wouldn't stomp anybody and you wouldn't slow them. But if you had Stomper on, then you could stop your super with the super itself, and then also stomp them with the gadget. Or even if you're just running after somebody, you could stomp on them and slow them and catch up to them easier. Next up is Griff's Coin Shower gadget, and this thing is just so bad, especially compared to his piggy bank. All this does is add one more set of projectiles to one of his attacks. That is not good, especially compared to stuff like clay pigeons. This is just bad. I think a simple fix to this would just be like add a 3 to 5 second timer so then he can actually get more value out of it. And that would actually make it pair really well with his keep the change thing because you unload more ammo faster. Therefore, you would get even more value out of this gadget. But with it only being one attack, it's just not that good. My next rework is to Grom's Foot Patrol Star Power. This one doesn't make much sense to me because you have to hold his super just to get a movement speed boost. But most of the time, you don't want to hold on to your super just to get an extra boost like that. So I'm thinking he could either get like a shield while holding his super or just completely replace it with something that lets him get a small movement speed boost every time he lands an attack. Kind of like Gale's Star Power where he slows people, but like the opposite. It would just give this more value overall. I don't think this is a very good star power at all. Next up is Bonnie's Wisdom Tooth, and I'm sure none of you have ever seen this get value. It says that her attack shatters on hit, dealing 25% extra damage to nearby enemies, but it's so small that it's never gonna hit. So what I would do is just make this way larger so then it can actually hit a single enemy who's near the Bonnie's attack. This one is more of just like a buff, but it needs it, dude. This thing is so bad. Next, we have Sam's Remote Recharge, and since Hardy Recovery is such a broken ability that he basically needs to be viable, we need to make Remote Recharge an actually good ability to compete with it. So instead of it taking like, I don't know, 20-30 seconds to recharge when an enemy is standing on it, I would just let his super automatically recharge over like 10-ish seconds, so then he could just pull it back to him. And this would actually make him more viable in longer range maps or like Brawl Ball Overtime, because you could just throw your super out there because you know that you'll get it back no matter what after like 10 seconds. I don't think this would be overpowered. It would just make him more viable. And of course, it would give him an option between this and the other one, because right now, this is not an option. So the next thing I would change is Mandy's Hard Candy Star Power. This one just does not get nearly as much value as In My Sights, especially because when you have this one on, it is so much harder to even hit your shots. And most of the time when you have Mandy's range activated, you want to stay far away anyways, so you're probably not even gonna get hit. So basically, this one is very underwhelming compared to In My Sights. But since her attacks are so hard to hit without In My Sights, because people with like 2 brain cells can just dodge it, instead of giving her a shield, I would give her a damage boost, because you're either choosing to have easier to aim shots or harder to aim, but if you hit them, then you get more value. So next, I'm gonna change Maisie's Pinpoint Precision Star Power because this one just does not get as much value as her other one. Tremors is a way better ability, and this one doesn't even work half the time because why are you gonna try to hit at max range when people are running at you? It's just not gonna happen. So instead of it just being 20% at max range, I would just add like a Piper-ish effect to it and maybe reduce the maximum to like 15% increased damage. So if somebody's right up on you, you're getting no value. But if somebody's like half distance away from you, you get like 7% value. And if somebody's max distance, you get like 15% value. I think that would actually make it a tough choice between both of the star powers. But right now, with how niche this is, it's not that good. My next rework is Mortis's mythic gear. This ability is hot garbage, bro. It's so bad, it never gets value. I don't understand why it's a thing. This just doesn't help him in any way because 99% of the time, you're still gonna hit the shot, no matter what it is. So I would entirely replace this with something else. And I have a few ideas. One of them is just give him more healing with his super. I think that can make sense. But my next idea, which is a little bit more unique, would be to like give his super a little bit of like a poison or bleed effect when it hits somebody. Like we're talking weaker than Crow's poison, and it could last only like 3 seconds, but the damage that it deals could heal Mortis. And it wouldn't be that much, but it would just be slightly an effect that like might help him. Not only would it keep enemies from healing for a few seconds, but it would give Mortis like 300 to 500 health. It's not that much. It's a mythic gear. It shouldn't be that much. Next, we have Max's Sneaky Sneakers gadget, and this one is just hot garbage, but it has so much potential. So what this does is you press it, it leaves a base where you were just standing, and after 3 seconds, you teleport back to the base. This is fundamentally bad, but it's so easy to fix. Just scrap the entire base thing, and instead, just make it so that when you press the button, you rewind to where you were like 2 or 3 seconds ago. And instead of recovering all of the damage you took, just make it so then you recover like maybe 30% of the damage you took within the last 2 or 3 seconds, and you teleport back immediately. This would actually compete with her phase shifter, because this thing makes her entirely invincible, and she dashes. This one would just move her to a safer spot and heal her a little bit. I think some really cool plays could happen with this, especially if you like take a jump pad and then teleport back if you need to. That would be so fun. Next, we have Ruff's field promotion star power, and the only thing I would do with this is buff how much health it gives, because when they changed all the stats recently, they didn't change this, so it got indirectly nerfed really hard. So all I would do is buff it. Next I got here is Eve's motherly love gadget. I have never seen somebody use this, and if I have, I've never seen it actually get value. I would remove this entirely and replace it with something that helps her with like watery maps. I don't know what in specific, but like she has the float ability, but she has no abilities that you can purchase that actually help her float. Angelo has that, but she doesn't. Janet's stage view star power is like simply way worse than her other one, and it doesn't even get that much value in the first place because like it's just not gonna help that much. While you're in the air, you reveal bushes around you. That's just so niche. So this is just a random idea, but my first thought was replacing this with something that lets her like reveal bushes with her main attack. So if like you shoot your main attack into a bush, they get revealed like the squeak gadget, but for like 1 or 2 seconds maximum. That would just have way more value than this star power, and it would still have the effect of revealing bushes. It would just be better, and it would compete more with this one. I forgot to mention this one, but I would just increase the range on Hank's shield star power. You have to be like physically inside of a wall for this to work. So if it just had more range, it would probably not even be that bad. So next we have Otis Dormant Star Gadget. I would replace this with something that helps his super more directly. Like one idea I had is it could just slow people that are affected with this super, or a more unique thing is it could blind them, which would basically reduce their vision so then they can only see like 2 tiles ahead. So if they're trying to like juke and run away, they can't do it as easily. Next we got Sprout's Hypercharge, and this one sucks. It is so bad. It doesn't ever get value. It barely even does any damage. So I would just replace this with either invincible walls or just let his walls spread way farther. Like imagine if it spawned this massive blockade. I think that would be really cool. So next let's talk about Belle's grounded star power. This one just isn't that good. It's really situational. So to make it less situational, I would just make it so then anybody who's marked has a lower reload speed until they die. It doesn't have to be like a crazy reload speed nerf, but just anything to make it better than what it is right now. I would also completely change Pearl's heal gadget because this one is just so much worse than Overcooked. It needs to be good enough to actually compete with the godlike gadget. Instead of letting her heal allies, I would make it so then she can eat up her heat and heal herself instead. So for each little chunk of heat that you take up with it, it would give her another little piece of an overtime heal. So the more heat you have, the more you're going to heal over time. Also, Pearl's Hypercharge desperately needs a rework. This is basically just as useless as Sprouts. I don't exactly know what I would do, but one idea I had was like the circle could just slowly get larger, so then it can at least push people out of a bigger area. But right now, it gets like no value. Next up, we got RT's Inline, and this is probably like the single worst ability in the entire game. maybe outside of remote recharge. It has no value. It doesn't even do that much damage. The slow isn't even that good. This is a horrible ability. I would replace it with anything, but my idea is to change this to an ability that teleports his butt to him when he's split. So let's say you split and then your butt is left in a really bad position. Well, you could teleport it back to you so then you don't die. So it's like the opposite of his super that puts him back onto his butt. At least you could save yourself, you know? So Willow's dive isn't that bad of an ability, but I would just let her move while she's underground. I just think it would make sense that she could like go underground and swim under walls, but she would just move very slowly, so you'd have to use it like right next to a wall to go under it. I just think it would make this more unique than Lu's ability because it's like the same thing. And she's a thrower, so it would actually be very useful for her to go like under a wall if she needs to. Next, we have Charlie's slimy star power, and this one just never gets that much value. Plus, digestive is way better in every way. So to give this more value, instead of it leaving a trail behind her super projectile, I would make it so then her cocoon shoots out like a wide spider web around it that slows any enemies nearby. I think this would give it way more value and make it compete with digestive a lot more. Now we have Miko's record smash. This thing is so useless besides in like solo showdown and heist, I guess, but he's not even a good heist brawler. I would just replace this with anything else. Like, this game does not need abilities that only work in like 1 or 2 modes. It's just way too specific, especially considering that Monkey Business is way too good. Next, I would just buff his Presto gadget by giving it like a timer so then he can get more value out of it, because in its current state, not only is it weak, but it's nothing compared to this one, because this not only slows people, but also does more damage. So I would either give this a damage boost or just give it a timer so then he can use it more than once per gadget. Spike Curveball. Literally everybody uses this, and there's no reason to use Fertilize no matter how good of a star power it is. Curveball is just too good, and honestly, I think that at this point, they should just put it in his base kit and nerf it a little bit and replace this with something entirely different just so then Spike can finally have some variety. I think Crow's defense booster gadget is just kind of boring and uninspired. It's literally the exact same as some other abilities in this game, and since this gadget came out, there have been so many new abilities introduced to the game that would make a lot of sense with Crow, and I thought of something a little crazy. I don't know if it would be broken. I honestly think it would be balanced, but it would just be better than defense booster. So my idea is kind of similar to Colette's gadget where she heals off of hitting enemies, but instead of instantly healing, what it would do is every time Crow hits a shot, it would add to an overshield like Edgar's gadget, Gus's super, that kind of overshield. He would basically leech an overshield, and if he keeps the overshield after like, let's say 3 seconds, then he would heal a percentage of the overshield that's left over. So it's not exactly Colette's gadget, but it's kind of similar in the sense that you steal the overshield. If you keep some of the overshield, it turns into health regained. I think that would be fun and pretty unique. Chester Sneak Peek Star Power. I think this should just be base kit. It does not need to be a star power, especially when this one exists. This one is just way too good. Honestly, I could say that both of these should be base kit, but let's just say that Bellomania stays how it is. It needs some competition, right? So this is not competition. Having extra 5,000 damage is so much better than being able to see your next super. So remove this, make it base kit, and I had a pretty unique idea for this one. Change it to something that kind of removes Chester's RNG a little bit, but could help you a lot depending on what you like. My idea is being able to favorite one of his supers. So you select the star power, and then down here you would select one of the supers. So like, let's say I choose the bomb. For the entire match, I just have a higher chance to get the bomb when I get my super. It could be like 10% or maybe even better, like 20%. If that's too much, just nerf it down a little bit, but just overall a higher chance to get the super that you like the most. That's the only thing I can think of that could possibly compete with Bellomania. So I've already done an entire video on reworking Kit, but I'm gonna run it back a little bit again because I just want to go over this. I would nerf Cardboard Box because it's just too good of an ability. When he is a strong brawler, this makes him too strong. I would change it so then he has to enter a bush to activate it. This would make it more predictable and more situational, because right now he's basically Leon. It doesn't make any sense. Next, I would rework Cheeseburger in one of 2 ways. I have 2 ideas here. Idea number 1, he can use it while on an enemy. This would help him not immediately die. Idea number 2, replace it with an overshield. Kit already heals teammates with the super, so I feel like instead of another big heal, it could be something different, like a 3,000, 4,000 health overshield, kind of like Gus super, Edgar's gadget, stuff like that, which you could also use this either on a teammate or on yourself. So if you jump on an enemy, you press it, you get an overshield. If you're on a teammate, you press it, the teammate gets an overshield. I think this would be so much more versatile and it would make so much more sense. Even just being able to heal himself while he's on an enemy. And it would actually let this ability work when he's in showdown or just jumping on an enemy in general. I would personally just remove the overly attached star power. I would just make this base kit because he kind of needs it. And I can't think of an idea off the top of my head right now, but I'm just going to toss a few things around. Like maybe they could replace this with something that still has to do with you jumping on people. So let's say after you fall off of somebody, you get like a speed boost or a shield for like a few seconds. I'm just throwing this out there. I don't think this star power needs to be a star power. It's too specific. Finally, the last thing in the video is power hungry for Kit. Kit gains 200% power from each power cube. Like, how is that good in any mode besides solo showdown? It's not, because it doesn't do anything in any other mode. I would entirely replace this with something that just boosts any stat boost he gets. Like, let's say an 8-bit damage booster gives him like 10% more damage, or Pam's healing turret heals him like 10% more. Max's speed boost gives him 10% more speed. Something to make this more versatile. In general, I think that what I just said would be a lot more fun because it would still work with power cubes, but it would also work in 3v3s, especially if you build a team around special boosts like speed, damage, healing, shield, anything like that. 10% isn't a lot, but if it is too strong, just nerf it. Nerf the number. It'll be fine. Anything will be better than this ability. This is so specific. But yeah, that's gonna do it. Let me know what you think about all these reworks in the comment section. And maybe someday, a couple of these could be added to the game. That would make my day. Super Sally, hope you're watching. Whether or not you do my ideas, please just rework some of these abilities. Some of them just don't make sense in the current state of the game. And I feel like gameplay could have a lot more variety if a lot of these abilities are changed, especially for the brawlers that have like no options besides one thing. But yeah, that's gonna do it. Subscribe, use code NUBS, and I'll see you later. Goodbye, guys.